Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. The first order of business is the approval of minutes from the March 14th meeting. All the commissioners should have gotten a copy of that. Any comments, additions, deletions, corrections that anyone saw? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mike. We'll just call, you won't have to call the roll on that, Cheryl, just by an aye vote. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. That's okay, Tom. I can do an aye vote on the minutes, can I? Thank you. All right, the first item of new business. Now, at this point in time, I have to recuse myself from the next two items on the agenda. So I've talked to the city attorney. So as some of you know, my family owns insurance agencies, and my wife's agency does business with William Carnes Construction. So based on that, because it covers spouses, so I have to recuse myself from items 1 and 2. So at this time, I'll turn the gavel over to Vice Chairman Brown. He will conduct the meeting for items 1 and 2, and then I'll pick it back up on item 3. Thanks. Jeff?
Okay, so our new business for the evening will be to consider the application for the rezoning of 15,000, 15,006, 15,015, 15,040, 15,042, 15,026 Madeira Way, and 015-023, 15-031 Gulf Boulevard, and 200, 206, 210, 212, 352, 388, 390, 410, 420, 150th Avenue, from C3 Commercial Retail to PD Plan Development, Ordinance 2016-01. And I believe that this is a continuance.
Yes, and I'll kind of lead you along here. This is a continuance from the hearing that was previously held on March 14th. And so I wanted to remind you of a couple of factors, then I want to go ahead and swear everyone in at the same time. First of all, since it is a continuance, I'm not going to go ahead and summarize the application. I do want to remind the commission, though, that the standards to be applied to the evidence are set forth in section 110-391. The burden of proof is the greater weight of evidence, and that's set forth in section 2-10A. And now I want to tell you all of the parties involved, because it's a little bit different than the prior meeting, in the order of presentation. First, the presentation is going to be made by the applicant and then the city. And now we have two affected parties that have filed notices. One is Peter Trott and one is John Lippa. And it's my understanding that Mr. Lippa has a presentation and he may have additional testimony. That will be followed by persons who are not parties, and then rebuttal by the applicant and the city, and then a brief summary by the applicant and the city. So with that, Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to have anyone that's going to speak tonight stand up, raise your right hand, and I want to swear you under oath. Anyone that's going to speak. And you would answer with yes or I do. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you very much. So, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest to you we start with the applicant making their presentation. I will tell you I did have a telephone conversation with the applicant's attorney, and for the sake of time, they've suggested that maybe they talk about not only the rezoning application, but also the development agreement at the same time, so there's not a doubling or duplicate testimony. And if that's okay with you, I think that that would be a great way to save time, and obviously everyone will have the opportunity to speak that wants to speak. One other thing I wanted to remind you of is that I will not be reading into evidence all of the emails and correspondence that you receive, but I have provided you with copies of every one of them. In addition to that, this afternoon, actually today, you've received 2 batches of emails, one just about noon hour and one about 4 p.m. Those are the last emails that we've received. They were also hard copies on the dais if you want to take a look at that. And some other housekeeping matters, I just want to make sure that you've also seen on the dais a color rendering set from the developer. In addition to that, I wanted to tell you that there have been a few small typos corrected in Ordinance 2016-01. Those are also on the dais. And lastly, on the dais is a planning analysis that will eventually be tendered into evidence based upon what I've been told by the attorney for the applicant. So that's the additional information that you would have there on the dais. So with that, I would suggest that we start with the applicant and then work through to the city.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, actually Mr. Vice Chairman, honorable members of the commission. I'm Kate Wells with the law firm of Shoemaker, Loop and Kendrick, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 2800, Tampa, Florida. Thank you for your time this evening and for continuing this matter from your last meeting on March 14th. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to introduce the members of our team. On behalf of the applicant, Madeira Beach Development Company, is Bill Carnes. In addition, Tim Clemens with Mesh Architecture, Robert Pergolesi with Gulf Coast Consulting, and Cindy Terrapani with Florida Design Consultants are here this evening. A couple of housekeeping matters. I know this matter was continued from last month. I just want to confirm for the record that the presentation, the testimony, and all the evidence submitted on March 14th will be incorporated this evening so that we don't have to present the entire project all over again. Thank you. With regard to the individual seeking party status, Peter Trott, when we looked at the notice of intent that was filed, we were able to confirm that the location of his home or property is approximately 1,700 feet from our property. He's outside of the notice area. So based on the notice that was filed, we would object in that he's outside of the notice area, and we also don't know the basis why he feels he's an affected person falling under the provisions in your code. So I don't know if that's something you want to address at this moment or when he gets up to speak. I'll defer that to Mr. Trask.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we wait to see whether or not Mr. Trott is actually going to make a presentation. He obviously has the opportunity to speak at the public portion of this, but if he wanted to make a presentation, then I think that we should address that. You've got some specific provisions in your code that deal with that, and I would suggest we do it at that time.
I agree with that, sure.
Thank you. Since we last appeared before you, there's been much said in the media, both in support and in opposition to this project. The one thing I've heard folks say in opposition is that they want to see responsible development. I find those to be really interesting words because I would submit to the commission that is exactly what this project is. It presents an opportunity for responsible development in your town center. Back in 2001, when the Madeira Beach Master Plan was created, and I believe there were special or public charrettes as part of that process, that's when all of this started. That was the plan at the time. Thereafter, in 2005, you created the PD zoning, the Plan Development Zoning District, which allows the city to vary the dimensional standards and grant some flexibility to developers coming in, as well as other property owners. Thereafter, in 2009, the Special Area Plan was created, and it was amended in 2014. The Special Area Plan contains tools and strategies to guide redevelopment in your town corridor. The PD zoning district and the Special Area Plan, as adopted, are a product of a very public and deliberative planning process and contain the community's vision for the city. As the city's planning commission, you are charged with reviewing our project against the existing regulatory framework. This includes your comprehensive plan, the special area plan, and your code of ordinances. Thereafter, you're charged with making a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. The standard of review, as Mr. Trask mentioned, is found in section 110-391 of your code. It's described in details in your staff report and will be further addressed this evening by Ms. Terrapani. Tonight's hearing is a quasi-judicial hearing, which requires your decision to be based upon competent, substantial evidence presented during the hearing. Competent, substantial evidence includes expert testimony, such as the testimony and evidence presented on March 14th by Tim Clemens and Robert Pergolesi, as well as the staff report that was introduced at that time. It'll also include the testimony and evidence that will be presented this evening by Ms. Terrapani. Based upon the testimony presented, the commission must then decide whether our application meets the 5 criteria in section 110-391 of the code. With respect to our rezoning application, and in response to comments we received on March 14th, we modified our site plan and you'll see a copy of the modification above. What we've done, we've included angled parking along Madeira Way, and that was in response to some concerns with regard to what we had proposed in the way of parallel parking. What we heard consistently was that would, by doing parallel parking, that would significantly reduce the number of parking spaces available on Madeira Way for folks that use the post office and the other retail businesses in that building. So that's the one modification to our site plan. Everything else in our petition remains the same. Also, subsequent to March 14th, my client met with representatives of the Florida Department of Transportation to discuss the possibility of relocating the traffic signal that's currently located at 150th Street and Madeira Way. We wanted to be able to relocate it to Madeira Cove. It is my understanding that the FDOT is not inclined to relocate it at this time unless the location at Madeira Cove meets established single warrants. The required roadway improvements included in our project, and that I'll discuss further in the development agreement, they include adjusting the traffic signal at Madeira Way and 150th Avenue to accommodate pedestrian crossings at this location. We propose to modify the existing signal at that location to allow for traffic to remain, the traffic signal is going to remain green along 150th Avenue until someone pushes the pedestrian button to cross. At that point, it'll turn red, cars will stop, and pedestrians will be allowed to cross at that location. So it is, the signalization will remain in place. It will just operate a little differently than what you currently have. The second, as Tom mentioned, we want to be able to discuss both the rezoning petition and the development agreement at one time. They go hand in hand. So the second application on your agenda is the development agreement between my city and the client. The Commission's review of the development agreement, I think, is somewhat different than your review of a rezoning application. It's more administrative to make sure that we meet all of the requirements in Section 86-145 of your code. The development agreement that's before you sets forth the maximum development potential for this project. It is valid for up to 15 years or until all phases of the construction are complete. It allows for development to be completed in different phases, and the phasing plan will be approved by the city but can thereafter be modified by the developer in order to be able to adjust to market conditions. The agreement requires my client to satisfy capacity at each phase of development. So if the condominium units are going to be built, we would need to deal with capacity at that time for those permits. That will require review by both the city and the county. And with regard to that, something I learned since we were last before you, it is my understanding that the city is proposing, actually they're completing certain capital improvements in the area, including the replacement of the pump station that's across the street from our property, and it's my understanding that will be completed this summer. And that in 2017, the city is going to be replacing the sewer pipe that runs to the county facility. All of this goes to the city's commitment to improve your capital infrastructure, and of course, we'll have to show that we've got capacity for all of that infrastructure as well at each phase of development, not just at the outset of the project. We discussed last month about certain public access areas that are going to be located on the plan. So in addition to showing them on your site plan, we're going to be recording easements, public access easements, to show that they in fact will remain used in that manner thereafter, and it's not something that can be changed based on the site plan. We also are required to get other regulatory permits, including permits from SwiftMud, from FDOT in Pinellas County. There are off-site roadway improvements that are required to be funded, designed, and constructed by my client. And those are identified in Exhibit C as well as Exhibit E to your development agreement. And then, of course, my client would be paying impact fees, and those are described in the agreement as well. I mentioned earlier that FDOT has not agreed to relocate the light from Madeira Way to Madeira Cove. That certainly didn't stop my client from pursuing that a little further. And he has continued to meet with residents to try and secure a resolution to those traffic concerns that were expressed last month. We believe we have found common ground and propose one amendment to the development agreement. This amendment does not change any of the required improvements that we're committed to doing. This just requires additional steps for my client to try and pursue some other adjustments that will, we believe, affect the traffic. And I don't know if a copy of this was provided to the commissioners. If not, I've got a copy for you.
I'll take care of it.
What we're proposing to do with this amendment is to allow my client, in cooperation with the developer of the Holiday Isles Marina project, and to work with the city and lobby FDOT for certain additional measures. The first one is to modify the opening schedule for the bridge on Tom Stewart Causeway to no more than twice per hour, preferably at 15 and 45 minutes after the hour. We want to see if that can be accommodated. We would also coordinate efforts with the city to lobby FDOT to prohibit any right turns from Gulf Boulevard to 150th Avenue while the traffic signal is red. We believe that would allow for a break in traffic for folks that are trying to get in and out of Madeira Cove. We're also going to continue lobbying FDOT to allow the traffic signal to be installed at Madeira Cove and 150th Avenue. At this point, we're not taking no for an answer. We just can't include that as a commitment at this point without FDOT's approval, but we want to continue to have those conversations and try and get that done. In addition to that effort, my client would like to, upon completion of each phase of development within our project, he is committed to doing a traffic signal warrant analysis by an engineer. And if we are able to show that the traffic count is sufficient to warrant a signal at that location, we would then be committed to installing the traffic signal there, to relocating it there. So not only do we want to lobby FDOT, but we then want to complete the traffic analysis at the completion of each phase of development and to see if we've got the numbers to support relocating the light. My client, if we do have the numbers that we need to relocate the light, my client is willing to fund the design and the construction of that traffic signal. But like I said, those are additional steps that my client is willing to take to deal with the traffic concerns that were expressed last month and do not impact or alleviate the other required improvements, off-site roadway improvements that we're committed to doing. So with that, I want to turn the presentation over to Ms. Terrapini. I've got her resume, and at the beginning of her presentation, she is going to speak about her experience, and we would tender her as an expert in the area of land use and planning. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission and local planning agency. I'm Cindy Terrapini. I'm Vice President for Planning with Florida Design Consultants. Our offices are located in Newport Richey at 3030 Starkey Boulevard, but I'm a resident of Pinellas County. My resume is being passed around to you. Just to summarize, I have over 35 years of experience in the planning field, slightly more than half of it in the private sector, the other portion in the public sector, including significant positions as the planning director for the city of Clearwater, the assistant manager for land development coordination for the city of Tampa, and the executive director for the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation. And as I mentioned, I currently am vice president for planning for Florida Design Consultants. We're a full-service engineering planning surveying firm located in Newport Richey, serving the Tampa Bay area. Do you tender as a witness?
Mr. Vice Chair, they're asking to receive the resume into evidence, and I would suggest to you that would be the appropriate thing to do at this point.
Yes, I think we should take it into evidence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As Ms. Wells states, I represent Madeira Beach Development Corporation, LLC, which is the contract purchaser of the site and the applicant this evening. You've had a good deal of information and presentation about the site. Just to recap very briefly, it's 6.9 acres. It's located along Causeway Boulevard all the way to Gulf Boulevard, including both sides of Madeira Way on most of those sides. The site plans and the architectural plans have been presented to you previously, and they're here today. The site plan is above you, and I believe we have the rest of the plans, different pages, should you need them, if we need to refer to them. The project is composed of 2 hotels with a total of 430 rooms, 2 residential buildings for a total of 90 new residential units, a marina with 43 slips, and retail and restaurant uses of a total of 50,000 square feet. We have 2 requests before you, as has been mentioned, the planned development rezoning and the accompanying development agreement, which is a requirement to go together. I hope I must have done something to disconnect that. Well, I'll keep going, and when we need to get to the site plan, we'll get somebody to help us.
He's coming right now. She'll help us.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
We can try that. I'm not sure if it'll work. Sorry. Oh, come on, respond.
Everybody's looking at it, it's not going to do it. We all have to look, we all have to look away.
And it's just not responding.
I was just saying, I like the old school.
So, why is it doing this? Exit out. Full screen mode. Come on, let's do it.
There we go.
That it? Okay,
thank you. Thank you very much. I apologize for that. I guess I shouldn't get near the computer, but we do have old school. We've got the boards, and we've got them on display, and I know you've seen those as well. As has been mentioned, there are 5 criteria to evaluate a PD rezoning, which is our application. I'd like to talk about each one of them and how the project complies with those, and then at the end, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. First of all, the site is in compliance with the town's comprehensive plan. The site is designated on the comp plan as PRMU, Planned Redevelopment Mixed Use, which is what the entire special area plan is designated. And that plan category, and I quote, is to create a desirable mix of non-residential and residential uses by promoting aesthetically pleasing, safe environments and buildings that are compatible with the area's character, uses, and transportation facilities. The proposed development is compatible and consistent with that PRMU plan category. It is a mixed-use project, and it also proposes an aesthetically pleasing design, as has been illustrated on the documents that you have before you, prepared and designed by Mr. Clemens. The applicant has submitted these conceptual drawings, and they are a part of your PD rezoning and also a part of the development agreement. So they are binding upon the applicant as he moves forward through the development process. The second part of the comp plan's consistency is the consistency with the special area plan. And as you know, that plan was adopted by the town in 2009 and amended in 2014. And special area plans are a tool that have been used in Pinellas County quite effectively in many cities around the county to create an atmosphere and a regulatory framework so that development is encouraged and incentivized by whatever tools that the particular town decides. In your case, you've decided to encourage that redevelopment by allowing increased development intensities, both in FAR and in the hotel rooms. The other thing that the special area plan does, and has been done in the Madeira Beach Town Center special area plan, is to create character districts, and you've created 5 character districts. Our site is located in 2 of them. Most of the site is located in the commercial core character district, which is defined as the heart of the district. And it makes perfect sense for those of you who, and all of us who know this area, that is planned to be the commercial center and the activity center for the Madeira Beach Town Center. The uses that we propose that are in the commercial core district are both hotels, the retail uses, and condominium B, which is the condominium you can see on the map in front of you. The Causeway District is the second district within which our property is located. The Marina and Condominium A are proposed to be located in this district, and it is, quote, characterized by a variety of land uses oriented towards the water, such as residential and temporary lodging. Each of these character districts in the special area plan identified an FAR, a floor area ratio for non-residential, a density for residential uses for the condominiums, and a hotel density for rooms for the 2 hotels. And our project is consistent with all of those. Specifically, the temporary lodging uses is allowed to be up to 125 units per acre. Again, one of the redevelopment incentives that the special area plan is set up to encourage redevelopment of the sites. Our proposed density is 64 units per acre. The residential density is allowed to be up to 15 units per acre. We're at about 13.4, a little over 13 units per acre. The retail development is allowed to be up to 4.0 floor area ratio. Again, another one of those redevelopment incentives in the special area plan. And our proposal is at a 3.0 FAR at 50,000 square feet. So in summary, the development is well within the allowable density and intensity of the special area plan and the character districts, and therefore is consistent with the special area plan. The special area plan also set out objectives, or kind of your broad picture goals for the area, and the project is consistent with almost all of these as well, certainly all of the applicable objectives. The first objective that's probably the most important is to create a unique sense of place. Obviously, that is the main goal in this redevelopment area. And the proposed project incorporates both sides of Madeira Way, a significant amount of property, almost 7 acres, and will create a coordinated architectural design for the area.
Ma'am, I hate to interrupt you, but the AV gal that just was up here, your voice isn't carrying over through to the broadcast, so we need you to carefully move up and speak into the mic a little clearer.
Well, I'll try and speak up too. I don't want to get too close to the computer, and I don't want to jinx anything ever again. The second criteria is to promote a wide variety of uses. We've clearly done that through the variety of uses that were proposed. The retail activities center in the commercial core Restaurants are also allowed, entertainment uses, the hotel uses, and the condominium. So you have a wide variety of uses to attract both permanent residents as well as visitors to come to the area. The third criteria is to set a standard for urban design, and clearly I think looking at these designs that have been done, it's clear that they have set a high standard and high quality design for the project, and it's a coordinated architectural design for the entire 7 acres. The fourth criteria is to increase the number of temporary lodging units. We are clearly doing that by adding 430 hotel rooms to the special area plan. The fourth and fifth have to do with increasing pedestrian access and increasing those connections from the development area through the commercial core to the beach and to your wonderful parks that you have. We are doing that in a couple of ways. A new 12-foot wide pedestrian path along the entire frontage of 150th that will also be codified and confirmed with the public easement. Also, a pedestrian access way on the backside, on the water side, so that people can enjoy the water side from the hotels through the marina and then to the east to the park. Another objective is to develop parking and access strategies. Virtually all of our parking is within garages, with the small exception of a small parking lot at the marina. And that marina parking lot is shared by both the marina and both condominiums. And it also kind of serves as a reminder, a wayfinder to say you've arrived, you're here in Madeira Beach now, and also you are at the marina if that's your ultimate location or goal. The second criteria for the plan development rezoning is land use compatibility. I want to spend just a minute to talk about that as well. To the north of the property, as you all know, is the townhouses, then City Hall, the library, and this wonderful park that we're sitting in and adjacent to. And that is separated, of course, by the inlet. To the south is also residential at a substantially higher scale, ranging from 4, 5, 6, and 8 stories. Our project, condos A and B, are proposed at 8 stories, consistent both in terms of use and in terms of scale and in height to the residential to the south. Moving west towards the beach, the proposed hotels are designed at 11 stories each, with retail on the ground floor, parking within those structures, and then the hotel above. As you well know, you have 2 residential buildings existing right at the apex, at the intersection of 150th and Gulf Boulevard at 12 stories residential east. So again, similar use, similar scale, and actually the height, we're at 11 stories. Those proposed developments are at 12 stories. So in summary, the proposed development is consistent with the existing development, and more importantly, it's consistent with the desire and the intentions that you set out in your special area plan for redevelopment. The third area, or the third criteria for a PD, is adequate public facilities. Now, the special area plan did that analysis and then updated it in 2014 when an amendment to that plan was done, and all public services and facilities are available to the site. Potable water, wastewater treatment, stormwater management, solid waste, and then while the special area plan analysis confirmed that traffic could be accommodated with the development proposed, all of the development proposed by the special area plan, not just this project, but it looked at the entire development area and anticipated what would happen to that traffic system, and found that the level of service would still be acceptable for the entire special area plan. But just to confirm that, we also did a traffic analysis, which you had a report from last month by Mr. Pergolizzi, that confirmed that the impacts of the development will not negatively impact your traffic system.
You can keep that till you come up, okay, guys? Let the ladies speak. If you have something that you want to say, you'll have public commentary to do that. Let's take everyone's feelings into consideration tonight, okay? Thank you.
And the traffic report is in our application. It demonstrates that level of service C and D, which are acceptable levels of service in the city of Madeira Beach, will be met even with the project being developed. The fourth criteria is public interest, and clearly the development of the special area plan was created to be in the public interest to meet the goals of the city of Madeira Beach. So not only was that plan set out to identify the public's interest and the public's goals, that special area plan also went through an extensive public hearing process and public review process to get to that point. Now, here we are with an application consistent with that special area plan and asking for the rezoning. So we believe that since the project is consistent with the density and intensity and the uses that you envision in the special area plan, it is consistent with and furthers the public interest. The last criteria is consistency with the land development regulations. I know you had a good detailed presentation on this by Mr. Clemens earlier. Again, the project meets all of the criteria in the land development code with regard to setbacks, to parking. We're not asking for variances on anything related to the land development code. All of those requirements are being met. And I just want to highlight for you the developer's commitments that are contained both on the site plan and in the development agreement, and they're substantial. First of all, the creation of the public plaza at the apex of 150th Gulf and Madeira Way. That's a major commitment by the developer to build that and to maintain that, that activity over time and to create a public place at exactly the right point where you want it, right adjacent to the beach and adjacent to the commercial activity that's proposed by the project. The developer is creating a new 12-foot pedestrian trail confirmed through a public easement along the entire frontage of 150th, which will connect Causeway Park on the east to Madeira Place, the plaza, and ultimately the beach, for that entire frontage of his property. The developer is also creating a 10-foot pedestrian trail on the backside or on the water side between the hotel towards the condominiums, the marina, and the second condominium, and again, extending to Causeway Park. So again, making those connections in the public realm so that both visitors and residents can enjoy the waterfront and can enjoy making that access either by foot or bike or rollerblade or however they wanted to get there. The developer is reconstructing Madeira Way as a 2-lane street with on-street parking and substantial sidewalks to create that public place, a place that people want to come, that they feel safe coming because the traffic has been slowed down with that on-street parking, place for them to enjoy for the retail activity will front on those, and that will be a huge attractor and a destination for people to come to this area. The developer is reducing all of the driveways or curb cuts on 150th down to one single driveway, which is right in the center of the property that will, again, lead you straight into the marina and the dock master and that serve the 2 condominium buildings. As Ms. Wells stated, the developer is obligated to construct off-site roadway improvements at his cost. They are all stated in Exhibit C of the development agreement. I won't go through them. If you have any questions, we can describe them again. But again, all of those improvements are the obligation of the developer. And finally, the developer is obligated to construct an elevated crosswalk over Gulf Boulevard and donate a public easement for that as well. So in summary, the project is consistent with the planned uses in the area, with the existing residential and commercial uses in the area. It's consistent with the special area plan, both in terms of the uses allowed and the amount of intensity allowed, and achieving the goals that you have set up in your town as to what you want to see this area to be, and to create that special place and in that commercial core to invite people in and to create a public activity center. Pro site plan also demonstrates that the project complies with the land development code. It is concurrent for all public services, and it meets all of the criteria with regard to the land development code. Based on this analysis, we have find, and it's my professional opinion, that the application is consistent with all 5 criteria found in the plan development rezoning application process. We respectfully request your approval of both the plan development and the development agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about my presentation or if you have questions for the rest of the team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Terrapini. Any questions for her, guys? Anybody?
I have one question. Are you going to tender this report into evidence?
Oh, yes, sir. My presentation tonight is based on the report that you have in front of you. I would ask that you accept it into evidence as part of the hearing this evening.
I suggest we take that into evidence then, yeah.
Okay. So we're just going to go ahead and mark that.
Okay. So we have other presenters coming up. Mr. Trask?
I just want to make sure that Ms. Wells doesn't have any other witnesses that she wanted to present before we go to the city for a presentation.
Okay.
No other witnesses, but I did want to clarify two items. With regard to the revisions or modifications to the site plan, my client reminded me that the setback for Hotel A is set back 10 feet further than when we presented this to you last month, so that's the other revision. And with regard to our requested amendment to the development agreement, we've been asked to specify with respect to the traffic analysis studies that we're willing to do upon completion of each phase, that we conduct them between the months of February and July. We are agreeable to that, so that amendment will be further modified to include that timeframe within the amendment. So with that, we conclude our presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Healy is going to be speaking next. We're kind of short on the microphone. We thought this would reach. I don't think it will, so maybe you guys should just flip so that, because your voice is so light.
Mr. Trask, I'm just going to talk to the audience just for 1 second, if that's okay. I want to address that little outburst that just happened earlier. It's obvious that this is a very polarizing subject for this community, and we've come together as a community to take time to listen to both sides. I applaud everyone here for being here, and if someone says something that you agree with, I think that you should say something, applaud them, and let them know that you've got their back. But rude, intimidating behavior is not going to be accepted here. And if we see it happening, I will ask you to be removed. We're going to be civil, and we're going to get through this, okay? Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice Chair, my name is Dave Healy with Calvin Giordano and Associates here on behalf of the city. I want to pick up where I left off at our March 14 meeting, if I can, very briefly. Remind the commission that we touched on some 6 things that I went through with you at that meeting, including a summary description of the application, highlighting the process by which the plan development rezoning is considered, an overview of the project itself, and we touched on some preliminary findings based on where we were at that stage in our review as staff. We identified several remaining areas to be addressed, and we then summarized a preliminary recommendation, which ended up to be the continuation, which the board, in fact, did. You've heard that testimony back in March on my part from the applicant. You've heard the applicant represent in summary fashion both their application for rezoning to plan development, the accompanying development plan, as well as the provisions in the development agreement. So I won't go back through those unless you have questions of me as staff. But those are set out, our findings are set out in the staff report prepared by Mr. Cerna, and I'll be happy to review any of those details with you. What I would like to simply reiterate and summarize based on what's taken place in the intervening month with the adjustments that have been made to the plan, the additional details that the applicant has provided in the development agreement that we asked for relative to those same 5 criteria by which the commission is charged to review the application that Ms. Terrapini hit on. The first is, as laid out in Mr. Cerna's staff report to you, that our finding is that the application is consistent with a comprehensive plan. 2 key points there. One, it's consistent with the purpose of the existing planned redevelopment mixed-use plan category. We're not changing the plan designation. Secondly, that plan and the special area plan underneath it require any rezoning within the planned redevelopment mixed-use designation to use the plan development zoning technique for the very reason that it enables the commission and ultimately the City Board of Commissioners to understand precisely what is proposed vis-a-vis the development plan. And that's been laid out in some considerable detail. There are specific selective provisions in the special area plan that encourage additional temporary lodging use and mixed use, both of which are being addressed. There is no increase in what preceded the planned redevelopment mixed-use designation as far as residential density. The 15 units an acre that's proposed is the maximum that was allowed and is proposed here. There is provision, and an important part of the special area plan is to encourage coordinated design and enhancement of the public realm. We believe that, in fact, has been addressed in a significant way in the application. And lastly, elimination of multiple points of access, the provision for structured parking, and coordinated traffic management enhancements are all part of the plan that accompanies the application for rezoning that speaks specifically to the consistency with your comprehensive plan and the special area plan. I won't go through the whole list of reasons why they're laid out in the report, but we find similarly that the proposed land use, the mix of uses, both tourist accommodations, temporary lodging use, residential use, and the retail use are compatible with the existing uses. Ms. Terrapini laid out the foundation for the relationship between the proposed condo buildings A and B in relationship to the residential units across the inlet and those across the other side of Tom Stewart Causeway, as well as the relationship of the more intensive hotel use at the very center of the commercial core area on Gulf Boulevard and Madeira Way. It does provide for connection to Causeway Park and the proposed public plaza at Gulf Boulevard relative to those public use and public realm. It does address the public facilities, the adequacy of those public facilities in terms of the infrastructure analysis that was done in the first place with the adoption of the special area plan, as well as the amendments that were done to Appendix B in the 2014 amendments. The applicant's initial contact has been made with all of those providing agencies, the county, DOT, SwiftMud, as well as the city, and a specific traffic analysis prepared to address some of the more specific issues relative to the impacts of this particular project. Importantly, on that note, irrespective of all that front-end analysis, they will need to meet the test for concurrency at each phase of the project, as Ms. Wells pointed out. So there's no broad grant here on the front end. If things were to change as the project progresses through time, each time a building permit is applied for, it's going to have to meet that concurrency test. That's specifically provided for in the development agreement. The public interest, we believe, is addressed both in terms of the long-standing policies in the comprehensive plan that subsequently were reflected in the special area plan adopted by the city, and the specific provisions in that plan that speak to the enhanced need for temporary lodging accommodations to create the kind of economic and aesthetic activity in the center of the city that that plan speaks to. It includes traffic, pedestrian, open space enhancements that will in fact serve the public interest. And lastly, it absolutely is consistent with the land development regulations. I mentioned to start that, first of all, the requested rezoning to PD is a requirement of any amendment within the town center plan, and attendant to that is the development agreement that lays out in great detail the responsibilities and commitments of both parties, both the city and the applicant. That accompanies this application. In the applicant's presentation, they address both, so I will as well. One of the things I touched on at the last meeting that we left to be addressed dealt with some things to be clarified in that development agreement, and I'll just touch very briefly on each of those that we can speak to more specifically if the commission needs to. First of all, we wanted clarification that the concept site development plan that accompanies the application would be subject to individual subsequent site plan review for each phase of development as that phase came forward pursuant to the specific requirements in the code, and that has been addressed and is specifically provided for in the development agreement. Secondly, with respect to the specific concurrency determination that I just mentioned, again, additional provision has been made in the development agreement that provides for that concurrency determination. We asked for an enumeration of the specific timeframes for the phasing, and the timeframes have been incorporated in the development agreement. There is a requirement that the initial building permit be applied for within 3 years of the effective date of the development agreement, and each subsequent phase proceed then within 3 years of that preceding phase. So that has been laid out. The correlation of off-site improvements. We wanted to tie the commitment to do the off-site improvements to the specific phase of development to which it would relate. Important, obviously, that those improvements be in place as that phase of development goes forward, and that has been laid out in great detail in the development agreement. I'll refer to that specifically so that you can find those, since we're talking about both documents at this point. In the several exhibits to the development agreement. First is Exhibit A, which is the legal description. Exhibit B is the concept plan, which is committed to. Exhibit C identifies the off-site roadway improvements. Exhibit D is the project data sheet that enumerates the specific number of condo units, hotel rooms, retail, and restaurant area. And I will note in the first paragraph, I think, of our report, we said 35,000 square feet of retail. That was one of my questions last time. It is 35,000 square feet of retail plus 15,000 square feet of potential restaurant for a total of 50,000 square feet of retail combination restaurant maximum. The proposed phasing plan and the required improvements tied to that phasing plan are set out in Exhibit E, and Exhibit F includes the public access areas that both Ms. Wells and Ms. Terrapini referred to. So all of those things have been addressed to our satisfaction as staff, and our staff conclusion and recommendation is that it does meet those criteria set forth in your code, and we would recommend the Planning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning to PD, the accompanying concept plan, and the accompanying development agreement to the City Commission. Be glad to answer any questions the Commission has of either Mr. Cerner or I.
Okay, so since traffic is such a hot button issue here, and Mr. Pergolesi's study, that has to be put before FDOT engineers for approval. Is that correct?
Yes, they'll need to receive a permit, an access permit from DOT for those improvements that have been identified and proposed.
So they're going to look over Mr. Pergolesi's information, but using their own studies, their own engineers, they're going to determine that it is an approvable situation, correct?
They will have to approve it according to their standards, DOT standards, yes, sir.
And it also in your, it seems like at each phase you're saying when a condo or a hotel is built, we're going to be receiving a new impact study on how each of these phases is affecting our traffic. Am I correct on that?
Well, I don't know that it would be a new impact study. There'd be an impact fee paid at each phase, correspondent with the building permit. Those improvements that have already been identified and tied as necessary to those phases will have to be constructed correspondent with that phase. That's the objective.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I can interject, I think the verbiage that you were looking for is part of that amendment that they put forth tonight. It's traffic signal warrant analysis. And that's a little different than that impact analysis, and that's what would be done after every phase of the project to see how it's affecting our traffic and whether or not the counts warrant that intersection, frankly.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. Under this agreement, there is no way that the marina parking lot can become condo C or hotel C. They
No
would have
way
to
without coming back through a public hearing that would come to this Planning Commission and approval by the Board of Commissioners as an amendment to the agreement.
Right, but there's no surprises that all of a sudden that'll be condo C going in that marina parking lot.
No, no surprise.
Anybody else? Okay, let's move on.
Ms. Wells, do you have any cross-examination questions for Mr. Healy? No? Okay, so now is the opportunity for Mr. Trott. I know that he's here. I saw him. Do you want to make a presentation today, or you just want to speak under public comment? That's a simple question. Okay, so now is the time to address the affected party issue for Mr. Trott. You'll remember that Ms. Wells had objected to Mr. Trott being considered an affected party. And I just want to read the code provision to you, Mr. Vice Chair, because you will be the one that will be making this decision. It will not be put to the floor for a vote on the board members. Under Section 2-7, titled Parties, it says, "The parties to a quasi-judicial proceeding shall be the applicant, the city, and any affected person who files a notice of intent to be a party with the City Community Development Department not less than 5 days prior to the commencement of the hearing. Forms for a notice of intent shall be provided by the department upon request. A party shall be entitled to participate at the hearing and may present evidence to the board. A party may call witnesses, present relevant exhibits and other documentary evidence, cross-examine witnesses, make motions and objections, and present a summary statement to the board at the conclusion of the evidence." And subparagraph C, this is the important one. "Any person who files a notice of intent to be a party," and by the way, Mr. Trott did do that, "shall be presumed to be an affected person unless the status of that person is challenged by another party," which is what Mrs. Wells is doing. "In this event, the board shall determine whether or not the person who claims to be an affected person is an affected person as defined herein." And I want to read you that definition. "Affected person is the owner, resident, or other occupant of the real property which is the subject of a quasi-judicial proceeding, or an aggrieved or adversely affected party as the term is defined at Section 163.3215 Florida statutes." So that means I got to read that statute to you, too. Okay. Not very long. Got to find it first. Well, it's not here. Kate, do you have a copy of that statute with you so I can go ahead and read it? Okay, if you could just let me have that. For some reason or other in my stack, it's not here. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read from Florida Statute 163.3215. It says, "As used in this section, the term aggrieved or adversely affected party means any person or local government that will suffer an adverse effect to an interest protected or furthered by the local government comprehensive plan, including interests related to health and safety, police and fire protection service systems, density or intensities of development, transportation facilities, healthcare facilities, equipment or services, and environmental or natural resources. The alleged adverse interest may be shared in common with other members of the community at large, but must exceed in degree the general interest in the community good shared by all persons. The term includes owner, developer, applicant for a development order." So the sentence that you should key in on is that the alleged adverse interest may be shared in common with other members of the community at large, but must exceed in degree the general interest in community good shared by all persons. So with that as some background, I would just suggest that we have Mr. Trott come up and tell us, or tell you, how he believes that his alleged adverse interest exceeds the degree of the general interest of the community.
I would
So-
certainly allow Mr. Trott to come up and make that argument. Mr. Trott, come on up. How you doing?
Tell us how you're harmed more than any other member of the audience here.
My name's Pete Trott, and I live at 378 145th Avenue. Reference, how am I grieved more than anybody else. I believe there are many of us here equally grieved.
No, I want you to concentrate on you. You have to, if you want to make a presentation tonight, you're going to have to convince this board that you have an interest that's greater than any of these other people in the community as it relates to this project. You know, how is your interest more adverse than theirs?
My interest, the adversity that I'm facing reference my ability to live, transport, and find a reasonable level of security. And all I'm asking for is a very short period of time, and you'll have to make a decision, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wells, do you have anything that you wanted to add other than what you had said in your opening statement about Mr. Trott? Okay, so Mr. Chairman, now you've heard, Mr. Vice Chairman, you've heard that Mr. Trott has filed his notice that he says he's an affected party. You've got the objection of the developer. You've heard his reasoning, and you've heard the reasons why the developer doesn't believe that he is an affected party. So you have to make a decision whether or not you believe that he is an affected party. And if you do, he will be able to make a presentation. If you don't, he'll still be able to make a presentation. It'll just be limited to 3 minutes.
I think we're all affected by this. And I just, I wouldn't feel right if Mr. Trott wasn't given the opportunity to address this crowd. And if he can do it in a 5-minute type situation with facts and not hearsay, then I think that we should listen to one of our own.
Okay, we'll treat that as you've been found to be an affected party. So if you could step here and face the commission who you're speaking to and make your presentation. Now's your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
Number one, I think the community is very lucky to have two individuals willing to put the asset out and develop what needs to be done along 150th Madeira Way. I think that we're very fortunate to have a city manager that has provided the what they needed. I think that what they've done is commendable. However, this board spent $250,000 putting together a C3, C4. And what I would like to see is no condos there, A and B. I'd like them to be hotels that comply with the C3. I think to go 12 stories is just not where it needs to be. However, I was born in 35. I just had my birthday. About 10 years from now, I want to live in the penthouse on the one that's right looking down on CVS. And the fact is, I want somebody to make my bed. I want to have a full-service dry cleaners, barbershop, restaurant down below me. And I think we're very, very fortunate to have two developers here that are putting the asset out, and it's a major asset, but I think that they can do it under C3, C4. I think we spent a lot of money and was well advised, C3, C4. I think the Marriott, I couldn't believe they could put that on that lot, but they're running better than 90%, sometimes 102%. Their cheapest room off-season's $109. The best room's $400, and they're full. I think that the Condo A and Condo B should be hotels, and I think they need to be connected with ground transportation, that whether it be carts or whatever. I think that we are very fortunate to have the city that we have. I like the city the way it is. I like the idea of people willing to stand up and spend their money, and I think that under C3, C4, I'm all for it. I don't know, I think by going PD, it maybe multiplies the value by 3 or 4. I don't know how much it does. I know once you get above 3 or 4 stories, things change, the clientele changes, but I want to see my city, your city, the money spent, well-designed, C3, C4, and I think they can do it. What I see
Real
is,
quick, Mr. Trott, do you have any exhibits that you want to put up, because time is starting to get thin?
okay, one more minute.
Okay. But if
We're
you have
drink-
exhibits, we need to get those.
No, I don't have any
Into-
exhibits. You're drinking from a fire hose. It keeps coming and coming and coming. And the fact is that I'm obviously out-lawyered here. You know, sometimes when you get an objective, you figure it out, and sometimes figures lie. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Trott.
Mr. Trott, Mr. Trott.
Mr. Trott,
can you
Mr.
hang on
Trask
just a
has a
second?
question.
I don't know if Ms. Wells has any cross-examination of you. I just want to give her that opportunity since you are now an affected party. You have any cross-examination? I do not. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're done.
Thank you, Mr. Trott.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chair, now it's John Lippa. He's going to make a presentation to you.
Hey, John, come on up. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good evening. I've been in front of you before. I've been in front of the commissions before. I've been in, and I've spoken with both developers, spoken with Mr. Trask, I've spoken with Mr. Crawford.
Okay, they can't hear you at all, John, so hang on just a
Just let
second.
me finish, let her finish her thing, and I'll, while she's doing that, I was going to talk about what an aggrieved party was, but you already heard that, so we can skip this. And so I'll shorten my presentation by at least that much. But I think what I want to try to prove to you tonight is that without emotion, without passion, with just reason and facts, everything you heard, can't hear it?
You're going to have to really get into that microphone.
Oh, I guess you got to get you got a big place, get a longer arm. This amendment you got this evening just didn't fall out of the sky. This was worked on. In fact, it came together yesterday with conversation with the city manager and Mr. Carnes. So I want to show you tonight how that came to be and why it's important and why we need to really push FDOT. That is the key in all of this. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody. I'm not going to yell. I'm just going to show you facts. I want to give you some background on me because you've seen me, but you really don't know me. And I guess I got to prove to you that I'm competent and credible to be considered by you folks. So I worked for 31 years with major corporations, General Electric, Lockheed Martin, Martin Marietta, and I retired from General Dynamics, all defense contractors. I retired as the senior human resource executive for a division of General Dynamics with multiple locations in multiple states. When I retired, I got active in my community, and I even chaired a commission like you in my city. So I know what you go through. I know how to analyze things, and I don't envy you. I helped start a feeder system to the minor league baseball. New England, the North Adams Steeplecats, and many of the kids that came through our program are now in the major leagues, including Steven Strasburg at the Washington Nationals. I graduated with an MBA from Bowling Green State University, and I was fortunate to be recognized by my alma mater as the Alumnus of the Year. I also served as the paid outside director of a financial institution, a bank, Legacy Bank, after I retired, so I know how to analyze numbers. So I'm hoping I could convince you that I'm competent and credible, because I got a story to sing now, and it's all about safety. It's not about density, it's not about intensity, it's not about heights, it's about safety. So, as I mentioned before when I got before you, I was trying to explain in 3 minutes, and I realized you can't do this in 3 minutes, and that's why I filed as an effective party. I'd rather just talk to you as a concerned citizen. I really don't have an axe to grind. I got a concern that needs to be addressed. And if you look at this slide above you, it shows Madeira Cove there. I don't have one of those red laser things, but if you can see where it says Madeira Cove over where it says all existing access drives, right there. Okay, I was trying to explain how difficult it is to make a left or a right turn onto 150th without that stoplight at Madeira Way. And then it gets complicated when you look where it says Dockmaster, where the 2 new condos will be. And now those cars are going to come out trying to make a left or a right. It's virtually impossible to do that safely or without a lot of fear and trepidation in your heart, because the road is narrow, the cars travel fast, and you have to get almost perpendicular to either the eastbound lane or the westbound lane in order to avoid an accident, and then hope you can get into the line of traffic. And if there's a car traveling east that wants to go north or make a U-turn, or a car traveling west who wants to make a U-turn or go east, you cannot see the outer lane without edging into the flow of traffic. That's why we're asking for some traffic modulation device to avoid accidents. That's all. It's not to stop development, it's to avoid accidents. The city of Madeira Beach did this study. You probably read it. It's called the Madeira Beach Town Center Special Area Plan. And in two places in that plan, it specifically mentions safety issues trying to go north and south. They cite it's very difficult for pedestrians to go north and cross the street north and south because there's no convenient way, and the speed of the traffic on 150th makes it even more so. Well, if a person can't dodge through the traffic, a car can't either going north and south. So that's another safety issue. All this, by the way, when I'm talking to you tonight, this document here was shared with Attorney Trash, shared with the city commissioner, or city manager, shared with the 2 lawyers, in advance. So there's no surprises here. What they're going to hear tonight is, what you're hearing tonight, they've already heard, and the result of that is this. Okay? Now, there's a better picture. I'm sorry, there's a better picture of what we're trying to talk about. It's trying to go east-west. And now you got now you're going to create a 4-way intersection at that spot. It's going to be mind-blowing. And it's unsafe. Now, it's just not me saying it's unsafe. There's a traffic report, or an action report by the Palace County Sheriff's Office going back 3 years. And it shows you the data by months. But what's interesting is when you look at it, if you look at the 2 tourist seasons we have, snowbird season and summer vacation season, the accidents in both of those seasons just about equal to each other. There's not more than 1 or 2 differences between the snowbird season and the summer tourist season. If you look at the peak months of both of those tourist seasons, March and July, the accidents are almost identical. 22 accidents in those periods of time. Almost 75% of the accidents occur in the tourist season. And if you look at the tall bar on the right there where it says total by year, the tallest one is 2015. The accidents in 2015, driven primarily by tourists, elevated 35% over the average of 2013 and 2014. Why? 2015 was a banner tourist year for Pinellas County, if you recall. And now we're going to attract more tourists with all the development that is being proposed. That's why FDOT, we have to find a way to get them to listen, because we're looking at a bigger problem. Those bar charts are going to be a lot higher once these developments go in. Now, everybody, there's a lot of people in the town who think that the folks who live on 150th and the 3 condos are against development. I'm going to show you some of the extraordinary steps those 3 condos are willing to do together to address their legitimate and heartfelt concern for safety. Why did I go back there? Mr. Carnes came to us, I think it was after, I think the dialogue started when he had his public meeting across the way. Is that right, Bill? Yeah. And then we had the discussion after your last meeting here. And then we met in that driveway, that long driveway next to the tennis court. That's the driveway that goes off 150th into Madeira Cove condominiums, which are those 3 buildings set way back with a pool in the middle. Okay, the condo with the tennis court is Boca Vista, and the 2 buildings to the right, to the left of Boca Vista, separated by the water, is Snug Harbor. Each one of those condos, the people who live in those condos are very concerned about how they're going to get out of their driveway safely. And here is what some of the things that we've agreed to do with the prodding of Mr. Carnes. This is an example, this is a rendering, I think one of Mr. Carnes' staff did, of, this is part of Boca Vista. And that building in the middle is Boca Vista condo, where it says option 1. There's a wall, there's some parking spaces there, there's like 3 or 4, 5 parking spaces. And there's a wall. Well, that wall separates Boca Vista and Madeira Cove. That's that, where it says Madeira Cove, that's that long driveway that goes back to those 3 buildings. What we're agreeing to do is to tear that wall down and to let Boca Vista come into Madeira Cove property and drive down the driveway, assuming we get a traffic light there. On the other side of Boca Vista, which I don't think it shows, well, I'll go here, I'll go back to here. If you look at where Snug Harbor is, you can see their entrance way off 150th, where there's the 2 buildings with a little small pool in the middle, and then there's some green space. Boca Vista is willing to let Snug Harbor, or they're willing to cut through their green space, make an entrance for Snug Harbor, let Snug Harbor drive all the way through their property, over to where we're going to punch the wall at Madeira Cove, and use that Madeira Cove driveway as a queuing lane so they can go east, west, north. They can't go south, unless we go backwards, north. Okay, so I mean, that's pretty extraordinary. If they were putting these developments in your neighborhood, would you be doing that with your neighbors? So those people who think, not in my backyard, I want you to really think about what we're willing to do, the extraordinary steps to make this happen, because all about safety. And we need your help in understanding this and to make sure this thing becomes real. No matter which developer is in the saddle 10 years from now, but who knows who's going to sell what. You know, we need to make sure this happens. We even looked at another crazy, this is a hand drawing by one of the owners at Madeira Cove. Early on, we went to Shane, he said, this doesn't work, but this is a roundabout. Can we put a roundabout in 150th? So at least to slow the traffic down so people can get around, but there's just not enough space to allow the emergency vehicles to use a roundabout, so that had to be discarded. Here's a letter from Boca Vista, way back in March. This is how long we've been talking about this, that they're willing to do this and work with Madeira Cove. We hadn't talked to Snug Harbor at this point. This was just Madeira Cove and Boca Vista talking. Because Mr. Karn said he was going to, with Mr. Holton's help, make sure that we do all this and not, the associations would not have to suffer the cost of doing all that. Because it's to his advantage also, because if we can't get out on the south side of 150th, the people in his condos on the north side are going to have the same problem. So this is a win-win if we can pull this off. The next one is a letter from Snug Harbor saying, hey, we're willing to do this. We're willing to sit down and talk with the developers. We're willing to try to find a way to make this happen so everybody's going to stay. The next letter is a letter from Madeira Cove. Come on, get up there. How come it won't come up? There it is. That's from Larry Roloffs, the president of Madeira Cove, saying, no, we're willing to do this too. And the concerns we had, and by the way, Boca Vista held a meeting with their owners. It was the largest attended owner meeting in the history of Boca Vista. And the owners voted to do this. Madeira Cove held an owner meeting with its owners. The largest attended owner meeting in the history of Madeira Cove. It went on for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and we agreed to do this. So this is not just people yellowing in the woods here. This is people who are taking this serious. Because we know development's coming. You can, Mr. Speaker before me said, yeah, if it was smaller, maybe it would be better. But it's going to be what it's going to be. There's going to be something there. What's there now is not going to be there. We know that. So how do we make lemonade out of all these lemons is what we're saying here, you know? I'd like to ask Larry Roloffs right now, who's the president of Madeira Cove, to come up and just say a few other things if he wants about what the association feels and what he feels. And then I'm going to explain to you some of the concerns about FDOT, because Shane, Mr. Carnes, and I met with them, and I'll fill you in on that meeting.
Okay, hang on a second there, Mr. Leppa. Ms. Wells, do you have any objection to the up-down, sit-down routine in the middle of witnesses? I can't see you, I'm sorry. No, it's fine. Okay. Ordinarily, Mr. Vice Chair, we would allow Mr. Leppa to finish his testimony before we talk to another person and go back. But there's no objection to that, so we'll allow, I would suggest that you allow.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Please.
Can I talk?
You bet.
Good evening. My name is Larry Roloffs. John said I'm president of Madeira Cove Condominiums. I live at 399 150th Avenue. And like John, I would like to tell you a little bit about me. I have college degrees in electrical engineering, physics, and a master's in business management. I worked for my country at the National Security Agency for 35 years and another 10 years at an engineering consulting firm. I also own 33% of a small electrical firm. I managed research, development, and production of secure military communications equipment totaling well over $1 billion and deployed worldwide. I have also been the president of Madeira Cove Condominiums for the past 12 years and will be on for at least 2 more years. I say this because I can't help feeling that when I have stood before you before, what I say and what others say to you at this podium doesn't seem to matter. Because we get the feeling that because we're old, retired people, that we don't understand the ramifications of the development projects that are almost tearing our city apart. We do understand, and our voices should matter to you, not just those business owners who have a vested interest in more customers. All right, I come to you today to further enhance and support John's testimony regarding the efforts we have already taken that we hope will lead to agreements between all affected parties. My particular role has been to generate and distribute numerous emails and sit at the head of meetings of the owners of Madeira Cove. I've also met with the Holton and Carnes teams to understand their points of view. I've also met with the presidents of Boca Vista and Snug Harbor and their other board members to understand their concerns and to provide those concerns to our Madeira Cove residents. At a recent Madeira Cove board meeting of directors on April 5th, we had an overflowing crowd of owners jamming our clubhouse because of a single agenda item: Holiday Isles and Town Center development projects. Our normal meetings last less than an hour. However, this meeting went on for over 2 hours. The main purpose was to go over options that the board developed under John's leadership regarding safety, security, and privacy. Each one of those areas is most important to Madeira Cove residents. The overwhelming concern of the residents was the safety of entering and exiting 150th Avenue. They repeated over and over again of their fear of getting in and out of our driveway without getting into an accident, and how long it will take to get in and out, with estimates running as high as 12,000 more cars per day traversing 150th Avenue. It is critical that all parties involved, as stated by John, understand the impact that is coming and what we can do to survive our ingress and egress into Madeira Cove. We are in the beginning stages of making very real sacrifices to our property, as John explained, and our way of life at Madeira Cove will be affected. Our driveway, for example, will not be ours exclusively, but may be shared with 2 of our neighboring communities. This is a sacrifice. Our driveway changes will result in the removal of beautiful shrubberies and landscaping that have been recognized by the state of Florida in winning the Community of Excellence Award. This may not matter to you, but it took us years to develop our beautiful landscaping. If we don't get a traffic signal at the entrance to our community, that will be shared with our 2 neighboring communities and the 2 new condominiums on the north side of 150th Avenue, as well as the new marina, then traffic accidents and pedestrian deaths will be a certainty. Why should FDOT wait for those events to happen in order to meet their warrant requirements for a traffic signal when they can do it from the start? We need all parties from City Hall to the 2 developers and all residents along 150th Avenue and in our city to work together as one voice to FDOT. In subsequent meetings, we have found out that FDOT is hard and fast concerning statistics needing to warrant a traffic signal. They will not yield if we don't meet their requirements. We need to pursue a different avenue, and that avenue is to meet with our county officials to take responsibility of 150th Avenue, from Gulf Boulevard to Seminole Boulevard. They may be more tolerant of the traffic issue and would be most likely to allow a traffic signal. We are only talking about a 1-mile road length, and the county must maintain 1,000 or more miles of roads across Pinellas County. FDOT for years has wanted the county to take over 150th Avenue. We must engage our local elected officials for for example, Kathleen Peters, and other state representatives, whoever else it takes to get this done. We cannot allow a single person to be injured or killed in order to get a traffic signal in the right place. We've been told that FDOT requires 3 deaths before they'll require a traffic signal. I would like one of them to come down 150th Avenue and get killed. Part of John's testimony was based on research on publicly available information. It begs the question, why did a private citizen have to uncover these facts? Why not your commission or the city staff? And one last thing before I close. I have not seen a financial analysis of the revenue that we want to get for the city by comparing 11 or 12-story buildings to 5 or 6-story buildings. Why can't we have an analysis showing the revenue difference? And if the difference is something the 4,200 citizens of Madeira Beach can absorb, then raise the fees, raise our taxes, rather than put 150th Avenue in a Clearwater Beach situation. So in closing, it is my hope that the developers and city officials listen to our testimonies and scale back the towering buildings that they want to build. As a planning commission, you can make a difference if you want. At least include a traffic signal at the intersections of Madeira Cove and Carnes entrances as part of the development agreements. Listen to us. Hundreds of us have come before you, but we don't think you are hearing us. Thank you for your attention.
Do you have any questions, Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Roloff.
Just another point, just to give you another point of reference, to go back to, oh, not that slide. There we go. The distance between Snug Harbor and the driveway at at Madeira Cove, 399, is 379 feet. There's about about 315 people living in that area. The distance between the bridge to Gulf Boulevard is about a half mile. So when you add Holiday Isles with projected people there, the condos across the street from Madeira Cove, and then the hotels, you're talking in excess of, 6,000 or so cars a day, or people a day in a half-mile area. That's kind of mind-boggling. That's why when Larry says we're worried about safety, and people are worried about safety, when you see in a half mile 6,000 cars, it's quite shocking. So I want to go back to FDOT because it keeps coming up.
John, that 6,000 cars, is that peak? Is that average? Where is that number coming from?
That's Mr. Bertolozzi.
That's Mr. Bertolozzi's, okay.
6,000 cars a day.
We keep getting the emails. I hear from 700 to 12,000.
Yeah, well,
So-
I guess whoever does the study, I
Yeah,
guess. So, but
okay.
Mr. Bertolozzi studies, am I correct, 6,000 cars a day?
6,000 for both projects.
Yeah, combined,
both
yeah.
projects.
That's what I'm saying, from Holiday Isles, including Madeira Beach Town Center.
That's additional.
Yeah,
That's additional.
to what's
So
there
what are we at
now.
right now?
And over and above, I don't know what's there now. I don't know if he does.
But we're just going to be adding 6,000 to that.
Well, that was on top of what's ever there, but I don't know what's there. I don't know what that number is.
Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I said, we did go to meet with FDOT, and they have a bunch of criteria that they, they have an intersection design guide. You would think any reasonable agency would have something to tell them what to do. And in that design guide, they have 16 criteria for a design of an intersection. The first one is safety. Mentioned the Madeira Beach Special Area Plan, mentioned safety, people going east-west, north-south. When we spoke with FDOT, the regional director and his staff, they could care less about north-south traffic. Their main, on 150th, their main objective is to move traffic fast, east-west. You go to Gulf Boulevard, it's just the opposite. They don't care about east-west, they want north-south, you know, so it's wherever they are. They have criteria for locations of intersections or traffic lights. There have to be something like 160 vehicle trips per hour for an 8-hour, on average for 8 hours. So that's why the traffic study count, at every development, everything that, every phase, there'll be a traffic study for a longer period of time to find out what is the traffic study. I still don't know how we measure east-west in that, but we'll have to figure that out. They also say they like to see a traffic light every quarter of a mile. Well, it's a half mile. It's 9/10 of a mile from Dume and 150th to Gulf and 150th. So you're putting 6,000 cars, 9/10 of a mile, no traffic light. They like a quarter of a mile, provided all the other warrants get met. If you go up Seminole Boulevard, not too far, you drive from the Publix all the way up to Park Street, there's 7 intersections. 5 have traffic lights, 2 don't. The 2 don't are within a couple hundred feet of the other ones. If you go around on Dume, American Legion Drive is 509 feet from the traffic light at 150th and Dume. 509 feet. We're trying to get one at a quarter of a mile. I found out yesterday in talking to Sean, well, the problem is 150th is FDOT, Dume is Pinellas County. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's why we need to get this politics together and figure out how we get the right agency to authorize the traffic light. So, Sean, did I miss anything on what we said yesterday? Or Shane, rather?
I answered it both, no big deal. Yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the head. The issue was, you know, I know it's hard for people to understand some of the jurisdictions, but there are people in this room that think that Dave, the marina director, pushes the button to put the bridge up and down. That's not our bridge. The state controls that. In this instance, it's a state road. We can't, even if Mr. Carnes or Mr. Holden says, I'll pay $500,000 to put an intersection, it has to meet their criteria. What we did learn through our research is that the state has been working with the county for ages, and I don't know what that means, but several years, to do a jurisdictional transfer of that road, Route 666. And the reason for that is it's not really, when you think of it, it's not a state road. It's low speed limits, a lot of cross streets. It's, you know, not a state highway, basically. The county is probably smart enough not to take the road. You know, when you think of it, it's just a liability, it's just problematic, and it takes maintenance. And so that's why there's probably this headbutting between the state and the county. We even went as far to say, well, what if Madera Beach would accept responsibility for part of the road that is within the city limits? And the state says, well, you're just compounding an already screwed up problem for us, because now you're just taking one small part of our problem away, and now we have to deal with the county trying to take the rest of it. And so that was a no-go as well. So then, as we sat down and kind of did this, we just kind of reverse engineered it and said, how do we get those statistics? And so I think, you know, for the good of the audience, because they haven't seen this document, it's I think proper to go over the 4 things that they've offered as an addendum or amended to the agreement. So the first one is, and I just talked to Mr. Marsicano here, FDOT and the Coast Guard govern the bridge openings. So what they're lobbying or asking us to do is that the city, along with the developers, lobby FDOT and the Coast Guard to change the bridge openings from, I think it's every 20 minutes, Dave, currently, and on demand?
Currently, it's on demand during the week, and then from 7 a.m., or from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the weekends, it is every 20 minutes.
So what we would change that to is just twice an hour, 15 past the hour and 15 to the hour. So that's number one. That's the number one facet, change the bridge openings. Then secondly, the next one says the developer and the city shall coordinate efforts to lobby FDOT to provide prohibit any right turns
from Gulf Boulevard onto 150th. So basically, starting and stopping traffic eastbound on 150th. In essence, reinstituting what the light at Madera Way and 150th was doing. So that's number 2. So 2 out of 4. Item number 3, developer and city shall coordinate efforts to lobby FDOT to put the traffic light in basically continuously. Constantly talking to our lobbyists, constantly talking to our elected officials, saying that this light is needed. And then finally, after every phase, so we're talking about a couple of phases within the Holton project, a couple of phases within the City Center project, every single time a phase is done, they have to do a traffic count analysis, and they can't do it in November or December. They offered the months right now. They're gonna do it February through July, probably the top months, the big ones, right? So what we want is we're actually looking for high statistics to warrant that intersection. So basically, we're trying to find high statistics, which these projects don't warrant enough traffic to warrant that light. We're looking for that after every single phase, hopefully hitting that statistic, and then the developers would put it in at their cost. So those are the 4 issues that I think the audience needs to take on with them tonight. Listen.
Anything else there for you, John?
No, you got any questions?
No, I've almost died where you're talking about too. I have to cross that street every single day, and it can be precarious, and sometimes you got to go over the bridge. So I certainly think that an aggressive push to get a light in that intersection is, wow, that seems like that could be the most important thing that we're talking about here tonight. So I agree with you on the safety issues. So any questions for John? Anyone here on the board?
Mr. Vice Chair, I do have a question. Sir, do you want your presentation to be received into evidence?
Absolutely.
Okay, and Ms. Wells, do you have any objection to it being received into evidence? No objection. Okay, so we'll go ahead and receive that into evidence. The next question, I wanted to make sure there was no cross-examination from Ms. Wells of Mr. Lipa or Mr. Roloffs. Okay.
The only thing I would like to say in closing is that what happened tonight with this agreement or proposal is the result of a lot of dialogue and some give and take. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. And if we can continue to dialogue with other parties and trying to find win-wins, I think we'll be better off as a community. So that's all I want to say.
John, thanks for your time.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chair, now is the opportunity for the public to come and speak, and I'll leave that to you to control.
All right, very good. Just remember, applaud if you like it. Don't boo. You boo, I'm going to ask someone to take you out. I'm serious. So you want to root for your team, root away. And that being said, let's see a show of hands on who wants to speak. Wow, that was quick. Come on up, right there in the front. You're going to have 3 minutes.
My name is Clint Herline.
Real quick, Clint, sorry about that. You're going to have 3 minutes.
I'll be short.
Make sure you keep an eye on that clock and don't let us shut you off, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have a business called the Amish Creamery at 150th and Madera Way. I'm going to be displaced, but I am very happy that it's going to happen. For 10 years, I've worked in a building that I've tried to improve. The gentleman said before, his age, I'm 70 years old. The business buildings I'm in are 70 years old. The termites are tired of holding hands, okay? We need new development down here. It's going to displace me, but I think for the city of Madera Beach and myself, which I will find another place, this is one of the best things that could ever happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Next hand. Wow. Okay, 2 ladies. Ladies first. Come on. I'll get you next, I promise, okay? Come on up and state your name, and there you go. Name and address, all that kind of good stuff.
Ellen Palladino, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue here in Madera Beach. Very happy to see these resourceful people up here making this decision, and I want to thank you first because I can see you're all very attentive to what people are saying, and I know you're going to make the right decision. So thank you for your time and everything that you're doing. But my 2 cents, I can't wait to get these projects started. I'm really tired of going over the bridge and seeing empty lots and outdated buildings right at the gateway to our city. Traffic doesn't bother me too much. I didn't come to the beach to avoid traffic. I deal with it every day. Just leave a little earlier and it's usually not a problem. I just think that it will raise the stature of our city, our town. I'm happy to see a hotel inn. Everybody was talking about how sad it was we lost the Holiday Inn. Well, now we have opportunities to bring in a couple of what appear to be beautiful hotels, along with more boat parking and things like that, and I just think everybody in the city would enjoy it. I know I would, but this is just me talking, so thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Happy. Come on up. I like your shirt. Very glittery.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy. I live at 116 145th Avenue. Thank you for all your service and your diligence and listening to community concerns and just getting all this ironed out.
Tracy, I need your last name.
Oh, Rydell.
Thank you.
So I couldn't help but think when I was looking at Mr. Lipa's bar graph of the kind of the likeness with the real tall, year-to-date car crashes and the lower, month-to-month car crashes, and it looked like, the tall buildings and the little buildings and how, the disparity between the height. So I'm coming to you with just height concerns. I was actually thinking when they were discussing the traffic that if anything, I worry about people going over Tom Stewart Causeway in a much faster fashion because of the possible blocking of the sunset, which we all know and love. And I'm also thinking about how I am a part-time resident in my other town. The exact same thing was happening just down the block from me is going on here. A development was coming in, and the community was up in arms because of the traffic issues, because of the height and the rezoning changes to increase the height on this condo building that was going in down the street from me. And one of the things I was really happy with was that the opponents and the proponents came together and worked out, community plus developers, and addressed the community concerns and lowered the what was to be a 17-story condo building in a neighborhood that has maybe, I don't know, tops 9 or 10 stories, to, shrink that building down, and alleviated the fears and concerns of the general public. And just like Mr. Roloff said, what's the real difference in the revenue generation between those top floors? But if we can keep buildings more in keeping with the beauty of our beach, with the other buildings, and not have David and Goliath, and it just seems like it would be a better deal for the community. Really, ultimately, that would be important. And in my last 22 seconds, I just want to say, hopefully that retail that's coming in will not just be nail salons, a Subway, if they deem that as restaurant, but, real, true restaurant, real, true retail. Thanks.
Thank you. Cat got your tongue? Come on, let's see some hands. Right there. I'll get you next, ma'am. Sorry, I pointed this gentleman first.
Good evening. I'm Derwin Smith. For the last 44 years, I've operated and owned the Madeira Beach Marketplace, where the post office is and those shops. Needless to say, I'm ecstatic about this development for several reasons. Number one, in addition to being the owner of that property for these years, I've been in the hotel business for over 20 years. I served on the board of directors of the Florida State Hotel Association for 10 years
and served as president. I've been in contact with hoteliers all over this state. I well understand the depth of financial commitment that's going to be made here by the Carnes Group. And I just applaud them, because the one thing that we've been missing in Madeira Beach for all these years have been hotel rooms. Industry in Florida is tourism. It's always been number one. It's going to continue to be number one. And we've never positioned ourselves so that we can share a piece of that pie. We have the opportunity now. And looking at the plans, if this development is finished the way the plans are drawn, this will be the crown jewel of the beaches. And it's not too big, because when you look at what's on that property now, there's nothing. So anything that goes there is going to be too big if you compare it to what's there. We need this, and I urge you to put out the welcome mat with your vote and vote yes for this project. And I thank you for allowing me to speak. I thank you for your time and your interest to this, and I commend you for being willing to listen to what everybody has to offer. You're doing a great job. God bless you.
Thank you much. Young lady in the back.
Hi, I'm Colleen Graham from 507 Crystal. I just wanted to, I think this question is more for the commission than it is for anybody else, but could somebody please explain these planned developments, if there is an allowance for widening of Gulf Boulevard some distant time in the future, if we build these structures that are brand new and we don't allow for widening, we don't allow for the fact that evacuation could be putting a strain on on Gulf Boulevard, for example. Is there any kind of verbiage in this that would allow for that? I mean, if they build the structures right up against the roadway, is there going to be some contingency for expansion of the road in the future?
Are you asking us a question?
Okay.
I don't think we can answer your question, but
Address the
we'll certainly address the issue.
Thank you.
The applicant will be able to answer questions as they come up, so, okay.
Okay, there in the back, I see a hand. Yep, you. Come on.
Good evening. I'm Dennis Fagan. I live at 11670 6th Street East in Treasure Island. And I'm the chairman of the Treasure Island and Madeira Beach Chamber of Commerce. And I know I'm not telling you anything new, but our major industry here is tourism. And local organizations, countywide organizations, statewide organizations spend millions of dollars to attract tourists to this area. And Madeira Beach has a lot of amenities to offer. This is a beautiful place to live. But what we do need is some places for the tourists to stay. I want to remind you that we lost several hundred hotel rooms over the past several years when the Holiday Inn closed and some of the mom and pops closed. So this development gives us an opportunity to replace some of those rooms. I think you're very fortunate to have developers here that are ready, willing, and able to build some first-class projects. Now, I'd also like to say that as a 25-year resident, my anniversary is in August this year, as a 25-year resident of Treasure Island, I'm very jealous about what you got going on over here in Madeira Beach. And I wish we had the same thing going on over in Treasure Island. So I congratulate you, and I hope you move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you much. Larry, I'm going to let ladies go first. You can be second, okay? Young lady sitting down, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Corey Hubbard. I am the daughter and the granddaughter of current and past Madeira Beach businessmen, some of those vested interests that we've heard people talk about. I grew up on these beaches, and my parents grew up on these beaches, and my grandparents first settled into these beaches when there was only dirt roads. I travel all over the country and watch small towns grow into booming tourism corridors. And when I learned more about what it took these places to grow, I learned that often what stands in the way of this development and growth is a lot of fear and a lot of greed and a lot of longing for the past or charm. And often from these that are content to relegate their communities to relics of the past. And I say to those people who oppose this growth that I think that you've raised your children better than this and you've raised your grandchildren better than this. I ask, since when is it okay for us to kick dirt on and discourage those who are working hard to develop and support our community? A good friend recently came to visit us this week from South Florida, and he had never been to the Gulf beaches before, north of Naples. When he was driving along Gulf Boulevard, spending a lot of time looking at new and past development, he remarked to us when he arrived that your beaches look exactly like South Florida did 30 years ago, which really struck me, and I was excited to tell him that the proposed developments in Madeira Beach were the first sign that I know of as a bellwether for the future of our community, one that would make it a sparkling destination for tourists to come from far and wide, one that's known internationally like South Florida is. And if we continue to stall, I think our hotels will only get older, our new developers will continue to face uphill battles like they have done in the gentleman who just spoke, City Treasure Island. The number one thing we can do to avoid improving our community is to give pause to outside investment and make developers miserable. Then they'll stop coming and they'll stop trying, and they'll almost certainly relegate our community to the dusty roads of the past. Some folks behind me speak against this project while they're residents of buildings that also got a variance to be constructed. And in Washington, D.C., where I used to live, we used to talk about people who talk from ivory towers, and I think what we're dealing with here is people who speak from pastel condo buildings, and I have similar problems with them as well. On behalf of my children and my children's children, I'd ask everyone to please stand out of the way of growth and to encourage folks like you to support this, and I thank you very much for your help.
Thank you. Larry Butterfield, come on down.
My name is Larry Butterfield, and my wife and I have a ice cream, chocolate, and fudge shop in John's Pass Boardwalk. We really think that this is a good program. We should go with it. They talk about raising taxes. For a minute, I thought I was at a Bernie Sanders rally. But the thing is this, we bring in these things, we bring in hotels, that brings a lot of taxes here. And also, a person said to me one time in a meeting in a neighborhood, said that we need taxes to fix our roads here. That will bring, without raising taxes, also the fact that it causes property values to go up. It's a great program from everybody, and I think this can make this one of the beautiful places ever. If you look at this place we just built here, this is beautiful, and there's a lot of people walking around it. I think it brings people here, and it brings a lot of tax dollars here. So please consider this program, and please keep it going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Young lady in the back.
My name is Allison Smith. I am the area manager of Smuggler's Cove Adventure Golf, located at 15395 Gulf Boulevard. We are ecstatic. We are so happy. We love being in the city of Madeira Beach. I grew up here. I've lived here my whole life. Madeira Beach has never really been a destination. It's always been Clearwater Beach or St. Pete Beach. Finally, in these past couple years, with the Rock Park, the new beach access, the old snack shack is now open. It's actually a place where my colleagues and friends actually want to go. So for the first time in 5 years, my son's Little League team actually played at this field. So we're completely support it. The thing that I think we do need are definitely more hotels. The visitors end up staying at Clearwater, St. Pete. So we definitely need hotels here. So we're for it 100%. We support you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In the middle, young lady? Yes, there you go. Come on up. Yes, definitely, young lady. Come on up. Sorry about that. I'm very short, even up here. And we're going to need your name and address, all that good stuff.
Gay Prince, I live on Marguerite Drive. I'd like to remind people that it was 300 cars in an hour coming in and out of Holtonville. In 1989, President Ronald Reagan said, "Ours is the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government." And with three little words, we the people. We the people tell the government what to do, it doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver, the government is the car, and we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Back in the 60s, it seemed to me we had begun reversing the order of things, that through more and more rules and regulations and confiscatory taxes, the government was taking more of our money, more of our options, and more of our freedom. I went into politics to put up my hand and say stop. It seemed the right thing for a citizen to do. 1776, Declaration of Independence basically says if there's something wrong, those who have the ability to take action have the responsibility to take action. A lovely buzzword being used in the media is progress. The quotes just spoken from were 1989 and 1776. What we have here is not progress, what you're experiencing is regress. People that are sitting up on the podium and taking the masses back to the age of the dinosaur when he who was stronger and had power pulled people who disagreed around by the hair. Madeira Beach isn't moving forward, more buzzwords. Madeira Beach is being moved like a stolen jewel on the black market to the highest bidder. Madeira Beach is being moved to tears. The governing of its people and its guests is progressing the disenfranchisement, defeatism, and despair of not being heeded yet again by another body with power over others. People say there is no hope. Those guys are going to do what they want no matter what we say. It's the same old story. And we've been telling you how we feel, and you're still progressing forward with favoring two people in two areas of land. That's not fair, not consistent, not equitable. If it's a sell-off that we want, then give it to all of the people. Let us all get planned development favors for all our properties. I could use the millions from a hotel myself so that I can move away to a better quality of life, to a quaint fishing village where they put beautiful 2- or 3-story architecturally pleasing buildings up from a city council that appreciated and enhanced what they had, and kept a marina zoning for the use and delight of all who live there, and guests who fully make use of the waterfront development left available to the public. Stop telling us that you think that you're wonderful with what you think you've done for us. What we know is that we're in debt from the spending spree. You want more, to quote Ronald Reagan, rules and regulations, more of our money, more of our options, more of our freedoms. We see this new city building while our storm drainage is kaput. We see our taxes went up. We heard that the bright idea from your traffic specialist to get us out in a hurricane was to shut all lanes on Tom Stewart Causeway to just outbound. One veteran who is an amputee and his family are worried for his safety and his life, because there's no way, if he nor anyone else has a heart attack while you're moving people in one direction, anyone will survive the wait.
Thank you, Ms. Kay. Any more hands out there? I got the guy in the back first, so come on up. And then the young lady sitting down, you're going to be next. Where's your hand? All right.
Good evening. My name is George Chavone, and I'm president of FLA Golf West Florida, which owns and operates Smuggler's Cove Adventure Golf Courses. I've been involved in 15395 Gulf Boulevard since 1990. Used to live over here in these condos. I'm kind of an old guy now. I've become an old person on the beaches here. I'm actually a very long ago past president of the Gulf Beaches of Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce. And so I've seen this situation on 150 Avenue not change for all the years I've been here, since 1990. And I think these people have put forward an outstanding plan to change Madeira Beach in a way that's better for the city. It's going to be better for the citizens of the community, and also it's going to improve the aesthetics. There's going to bring jobs that are needed in this area. And it's also going to increase the tax base, and I think there's so many merits with this that we can't wait.
Can we shut that phone off, please?
We can't wait for it to get started. Thank you for your time, and good luck.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Sorry about that. I was sorry to interrupt you about the phone. Sorry about that. No, someone else's phone was going off, so thank you much. Not your phone. I saw a hand from a young lady out there. Come on up.
My name's Mary Neff. I live at 317 Rex Place. And unlike most of the people that have been up here tonight, I don't own a store. I don't have any property. I live right across from what's going to be a hotel and 2 high-rise condos in the yacht club. And we are not asking you to do away with the development. If you're hearing that, you're not hearing what people are asking. We're asking you to do reasonable development for a small community of 4,200 people. If you put 2 condos across the docks from the yacht club, 11 stories, is that over parking? It makes it 13, but it doesn't matter. 11 is 11. The sun won't even come out there until after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We do not have the facilities in this town to handle the kind of parking that you're going to create with all these people. Reasonable development is all we're asking. The lawsuit is filed. We'll see what the ruling is. I know either way it's going to be appealed, but we're asking you to go back to the 2012 or 2009 zoning agreement that had the input of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? 3, 2, you.
Hi, my name is Drew Baumner. Moved in 1976 with our family, and certainly a lot of changes have happened here. You guys have really done an amazing job. Really going to be commendable. Other communities are looking at what you guys have done. Obviously, I'm for it. To have the boating, there's a couple of issues that look like, easily worked out, but totally for it. What you have done here has just been, as I said, commendable, and to make the entrance into Madeira Beach in that correct way would just really put you guys over the top as a community to look at. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're fixing to close public comment. Anybody else? Okay, consider it closed.
Now, Mr. Vice Chairman, the applicant has the opportunity to bring forward any rebuttal witnesses or answer any of the questions that have been raised by the public, if they want to do that. Anything?
Thank you. Kate Wells for the record. A couple of things I wanted to clarify. When Ms. Terrapini was testifying, she discussed the public access areas along the waterway next to the marina. We wanted to clarify that that public access area will stop at the parking, the marina parking, and won't go all the way to Causeway Park. So just that, and that has not changed since we were before you on March 14th, but I just want to clarify that for the record. Also, with regard to the height of the structures, we've heard a couple different heights from members of the public. With regard to the condominiums, we're looking at 6 stories over 2 stories of parking is the height. Just want to confirm that. Really, I don't believe, unless you've got questions of our team, I don't believe that it's necessary to present any additional witnesses for rebuttal. Based upon the evidence and testimony presented by Tim Clemens, Robert Pergolesi, Cindy Terrapini, as well as your staff, we believe that you have substantial competent evidence upon which to approve both of these applications, and we would ask for your favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Mr. Chairman, the city doesn't have any additional witnesses or summary. I do want to remind you that you are to be considering two items tonight. One was the rezoning, one is the development agreement. In addition to that, there has been a suggested change to the development agreement in this 2 pages dealing with the transportation studies and so forth. So that's being presented to you as well for consideration. I would suggest to you that you take one agenda item at a time and address that. And then move forward. But the public portion is completely closed at this point.
Okay. And just a quick statement from myself, just regarding city staff, because we've heard so much of we don't want to see Clearwater Beach here. Guess what? I don't want to see Clearwater Beach here either. And you're not going to see the city come up and give us 22-story buildings to bat back and forth. Everyone keeps asking for responsible building. And looking at the ratios that I've seen here tonight, are we below 50% on the hotel density? We were allowed, let me get back to that point.
We're about 25%, I believe, below the.
We're 49% below. So we're using about 50% of what you could use in the density. So it sounds pretty responsible. I'm not trying to make I'm just saying from the point of us up here working for you guys out there, I think the city's done a great job in bringing us viable things to work on, because none of us want to see overbuilding here either. I want to commend Mr. Holton. He came in well under what he could do for his area. Mr. Carnes just as well. I think we're at 13 rooms per acre on the condos versus 15. So that's a drop there too. So I just want to thank everyone here for taking your time and reading all those emails and just being up here with this board. Thank you very much. I do have one question for you, Commissioner Trask. So you think that we need to go at each of these individually and not put them together hand in hand, most definitely?
Yes, they're separate agenda items. I think you should address them separate by separate motions.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, before you move on, then, Mr. City Attorney, can you just recite if the motion for item number 2 would be to approve or disapprove the development agreement, but we need to incorporate the amendment. So that motion would be as simply as that. Would you be able to state that for the
Right, that was the second item that I was mentioning earlier is that you've been presented with the development agreement and also presented with an amendment to the development agreement for your consideration. So the developer is requesting that these additional changes be made to address the traffic issues that have been brought forward by John and others.
Okay.
So I think what I'm getting at, Mr. City Attorney, is if they want to, if the motion is to approve, how do they incorporate 9.11? Do they make the motion as amended, or to
It would be a motion to approve the development agreement with the changes that have been submitted by the developer, specifically paragraph 9.11 or 9.11.
Okay. All right, so we'll put those two items together and make them one. Okay, so board, do we have a motion on number 1 that's going to consider the application of the rezoning from a C3 to a PD plan development? Do I have any motions on that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept and recommend to the city commissioners to accept the application for rezoning from C3 to plan development.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Ann Rasmussen, seconds. Okay. Bring that to a vote.
Discussion first. I don't know if any board members have any discussion.
Okay. Anyone? Okay, it looks like there's no discussion here this evening. So we'll go ahead and take that for a vote.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Yes.
Commissioner Rasmussen?
Yes.
Commissioner Spidel?
Stildee.
Stildee. First Chair Brown?
Yes.
Second Chair Noble?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and so our second piece of business this evening is to consider the application for entering into development agreement between the City of Madeira Beach and the Madeira Beach Development Company, LLC, with the added addendums for traffic safety and the possible adding of a safety light at the intersection that will be created by the new development. Okay? Do we have any motions on that? Any questions on that?
I'll also make a motion to recommend to the city commissioners to accept the development agreement between the City of Madeira Beach and the developer with the exceptions.
Or the addendum, okay. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
And
Okay,
just so
Dave?
I can
Go ahead.
make absolutely clear what we're talking about.
Sure.
I got the development agreement, but I want
Yep.
to make sure there had been a presentation of a two-page document that's
Yep.
titled at the top, 9.11, additional off-site improvements, that is the document that you want included in the development agreement.
That is
for
correct.
approval.
That is correct.
I just want to make sure that the maker of the motion was satisfied with that.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Shall we call the roll?
Commissioner Rasmussen?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Second Chair Noble?
Yes.
First Chair Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Spildey?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I can give it back over to Jim Everett, thank God.
Oh, one other thing, I just wanted to make sure, I need to make a public announcement pursuant to Florida statute.
Yes, go ahead, Tom, sorry
There's
about
going to
that.
be another hearing on the development agreement. It's going to be on May 10th, and it's going to be here, what time is the May 10th meeting, 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock in this building, in this room. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trask.
Thanks, Tom. Now we'll move on to the difficult part of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, maybe you want to take a 5-minute, 5-minute little cool out there?
Little bio break.